All right, we'll take your questions for Coach Saban. If you'll raise your hand, and we'll get a floor microphone to you. Hands up, questions for Coach Saban. And let's start right in the middle.
Nick, will Adam Griffith be available Saturday?
As far as we know, we'll have to make a game time decision, but he has been able to kick this week and has done a nice job for us, and we fully expect him to be available for the game.
All right, next question right down the front. Go ahead.
Coach, obviously Missouri's here second year in a row. Are you surprised at all by how fast they've acclimated to the conference?
No, not at all, because I have a tremendous amount of respect for, Gary and the great job that he's done anywhere that he's been a coach, whether he was a coordinator at Washington, head coach at Toledo, or, now the 13 years that he's been at Missouri. I think their program has always been very, very good. So just to think that because they went from one league to the other, and there was going to be this huge transition, they're a very well-coached team. They're fundamentally sound in just about everything they do. They've got good players who buy into doing the things the way they want to do them, and they win a lot of football games, and their team did a great job of overcoming, a lot this year to win a lot of close games, which tells you what kind of competitive resiliency they have, and they're probably the best defensive team right now in the SEC, the way they're playing, and not a surprise to me that they're here this year and that they've been here 2 years in a row.
Okay, I think we have a question in the middle. Go ahead.
Coach Saban, is Cam Robinson still on track to play, and would you say he's 100% healthy, or where
Well, I don't know if anybody's 100% healthy at this time of the year, but he has practiced all week, and, we do expect him to play in the game.
Let's go to the right side and the back.
Yeah, Nick, what's your thoughts on the College Football Playoff Committee and some of the criteria they've created as the year's gone along, like game control? Things that you may have not known about at the start of the year.
Well, I don't really have an opinion on all that. I don't think that anybody would listen to whatever my opinion is. I think that this is what everyone wanted. I do think that I said this in the very beginning before any of this started, that the BCS had created a criteria of picking the best teams. And there were, 12, 13, 14, I don't know how many years of experience that went into creating that criteria that produced at least some number, right, of whatever that kind of ranked the teams. And really their failure was because they could only have two teams in the BCS game, was when there were three good teams, it created a tremendous controversy. And if you have four, the fifth team is always going to create a tremendous controversy. But I thought that as much of that criteria that could be used based on the experience probably would have been beneficial because you never got the feeling that there was a vote. The polls were taken into consideration, but there was really never a vote. So I do think that this playoff has created a lot of energy, enthusiasm, and is great for the fans, and it's great for college football in a lot of ways. But I also think there's a bit of a downside to it all because not long ago, every game that got played in college was an important game. And every bowl game that got played was an important game. And how many of you can remember you spent all day New Year's Day watching every bowl game? Because they were all good, and they were all good games with all good teams. And now the only game that anybody's interested in is the teams that are in the playoff. And I think the downside of that is there's a lot of good football teams out there that have had great seasons, a lot of players. And I just love to see people respect all the bowl games and all the teams that have had great seasons, which sometimes I think is not happening now.
Question down front on the right. Go ahead.
Coach, you've been in so many of these games, SEC championship games, national championship games. What's the best way for a team to approach a game like this?
focus on what you got to do, channel your energy in the right place. You know, you can't think of the magnitude of the game. You can't think of, because what's going to help you play well in this game, what's going to help your unit play well is that you're channeling your energy into doing the things you need to do to execute to have a winning performance. So not to get caught up in all the other things that are happening and know that it's about what you do. It's about what you do, I think is probably the most important thing. And how every team responds to that can be a little different. But I do think that's the most important thing that the players need to realize, the coaches need to realize, and go play the game one play at a time and know you're going to have to play a tough game for 60 minutes.
Okay, question down in front. Go ahead.
Hey, Coach. Missouri's been very strong on the defensive line, especially the two ends. What's been your impression of those guys and the matchup problems they present?
Well, they're great players. Both guys have had tremendous years, great production, whether it's sacks, tackles for loss. And I think their quickness is certainly, they're very instinctive players who have great quickness, and I think that creates a tremendous asset for them. And obviously the challenge is can you keep a hat on a hat with these guys and not let them get the kind of penetration to create the negative plays and the disruptions to your offense, because the way they play defense when they get you behind and down a distance, that plays right into their hands. So, you know, it's going to be really, really important to be able to control the line of scrimmage and not allow these guys to get a lot of penetration with their movement and their quickness.
Okay, got a question in the back on the right, and then Ann, let's get a microphone to the middle here. All right, go ahead in the back.
Right. Sunday, I think it was, talking about cornerbacks and talking about maybe being some competition there after the Auburn game. How did that go, and how's Eddie looking this week?
Well, you know, we have confidence. Eddie's played well for us all year long. And, you know, Bradley Sylvie did a nice job when he went in the game. And, you know, we'll make a decision sometime between now and then who we play. And both guys may get an opportunity to play.
Got a couple of questions in the middle here. Go ahead.
Nick, Gary wanted to remind you that you are a year older than him. Is there anything that you want to remind him of?
Well, I know, you know, Gary was a really good player and a much better player than me. But we did win a championship together, my senior year, his junior year. We were GAs together. And actually, Dom Capers, who was a head coach in the NFL, was also a GA with us. So Don James did a really good job of inspiring some of us, and definitely me, because I didn't really even want to be a coach. And he talked me into being a GA, and I've been doing it ever since and loving it ever since. So I don't really have anything to remind him of, really. I have always had a lot of respect for Gary. He was always a really good person, really good player, great competitor, and I think he's always represented, you know, our profession with a tremendous amount of professionalism and class, which I know Coach James would have been very, very proud of.
All right, another question in the middle. Go ahead.
Coach, I guess kind of staying on that theme a little bit, reflecting on your relationship with Coach Pinkel, is there any, I guess, specific trait of him that stands out that's kind of allowed him to have this pretty consistent success he's had as a coach?
Well, I think it probably goes back, you know, to his roots, our roots, because I think the way we both run our programs to a large degree is the way Coach James did it when we were players. And it was a lot about, you know, developing people, a lot about helping people be successful, a lot about emphasizing the importance of graduating from school, developing a career off the field, a lot about being all you could be in everything that you did, including being a good player. And always use the lessons of athletics to the lessons of life and how that could help you be successful. And so Coach James was very, very successful wherever he coached. I think you get a certain kind of person in the program that is going to work hard to try to do those things and buy into those things. And I think that's, you know, philosophically why, you know, Gary has been very, very successful, because we both had a great mentor to start with.
Question in the back on the right. Go ahead.
Coach, a lot's been talked about the SEC West specifically this year. How difficult was the West this year compared to other years?
Well, I think that the SEC in general, and I don't really think it's fair to talk about one division versus the other, because I think there were a lot of good teams, on both sides of our league. And I do think that it was a especially strong year in our division. And, whether it's Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Auburn, LSU, Texas A&M, Arkansas, just about every team that we played was in our division was a really tough challenge, for us. And, but that's kind of what you expect. Not necessarily in our division, but in our conference in general. And never did I think when we played Florida or Tennessee that it was any easier playing them as it was anyone else. And I know that, playing the team that we're going to play tomorrow is certainly going to be of the caliber of all those teams that we played in the West this year.
Question in the back on the left.
Nick, in what areas do you see the most improvement from Missouri's offense over maybe the last month of the season?
Well, I think, the last 3 or 4 weeks of the season, they have their best numbers, played with the most consistency. I think, Matty Mock has played really, really well as the season has progressed. I think his consistency has, not only in passing efficiency or doing a good job on third down, but just in overall managing their offensive team and putting them in the right plays, doing the right things, being efficient and effective and utilizing the skilled players that they have. They have great balance on offense in terms of their ability to run the ball and throw it and put those two things together play action-wise to create lots of issues for how to defend them. So, I think he's very athletic, and his ability to scramble and extend plays has been something that has been very effective, for their team. So they're playing their best football of the year. There's no question about it. I think it starts with the quarterback, but I think you'd have to give their entire offensive team a lot of credit for the consistency and performance that they've created the last 3 or 4 games.
Any question on the right side?
Talked about this being a building year for the team. Was there talk of an SEC or national championship from the beginning? And if so, how did the players react after the Ole Miss loss?
Well, we never really ever talk about that, to be honest with you. We have never talked about it in any year, whether we've had the opportunity to win one or get in one or play in the SEC championship game. I think our focus is really about taking our team from wherever it is and trying to improve them so that they can be the best team that they can be. And, that was certainly the approach that we took with this year's team. Ultimately, our players have high expectations for what they want to accomplish. They set their goals for what they want to accomplish as a team. And in those goals have never been winning the SEC and have never been winning a national championship for any of our teams. It is a lot about being the best that you can be, trying to do the things you need to do to dominate, the competition, to dominate your box, to be the best player that you can be on the most consistent basis, to overcome adversity and compete well for 60 minutes in the game, play together as a team, trust in each other, affect other people in a positive way. Those are more of the types of things that I think we try to emphasize with our teams so that we have the opportunity to sort of grow and develop and be all we can be.
A question on the left side. Go ahead.
Coach, do you enjoy coaching against really close friends, or is that more stressful mentally on you?
To me, I value the relationships that I have with other people probably more than anything else, especially at this station, in my life. And I think when you get a little older, you realize how important those relationships are. And I certainly value my relationship with whether it's, Will Muschamp when we played against him, or any other coach that's coached for me, or it's a good friend of mine like Gary Pinkel. But at the same time, I never, ever have taken any of these games that we play personally. It's not personal. I respect them as a competitor. I hope they respect me as a competitor. I think they know that when we play the game, that we're both going to do the best we can to compete with our group the best that we can. But that's part of what we respect about each other. All right? And when the game's over, that friendship is not affected by what happens in the game. At least it isn't for me. But maybe the respect grows in terms of the other person and the quality of work that they did. So in one way, I certainly respect the relationships, but in the other way, I want to protect those relationships and never make the game personal with the people that I'm coaching against.
Hey, question down front.
Coach, a lot has been said about the Missouri defensive ends, but has anything else stuck out to you about the other components of the Missouri defense that has allowed them to have this success in conference?
Well, I think their entire defensive team is very, very well coached, play really well together, do a great job of executing their scheme. I don't see any bad players out there at any position. They have a lot of good players. And, their team sort of reflects what they want to do on defense. They have bigger corners who are good tacklers, more physical players. They play a lot of cover two. They jam people a lot. And so their players fit their style. And their players do a really good job of playing their style. And this is a unit that, to me, plays really well together and executes, and every guy does their job extremely well. And I think that's why they play great team defense.
Hey, question in the back on the left.
Coach, this is not so much about this game, but as a defensive coach, a lot has been made of tackling, and that it maybe is kind of a lost art with the lack of practice time and even into the pros. Is that a fair assessment? Do you think tackling is not what it was 10, 20 years ago? And if so, why?
Well, I think that the whole culture of how you play defense and how you have to practice defense has changed dramatically with the no-huddle, fastball, speedball, approach. I think it's more difficult to coach defensive players in practice because what do you practice? Do you practice the fundamentals, or do you practice the pace of play? Until recently, we always emphasized the fundamentals. And we didn't play very well when the pace of play was faster. This year, we tried to put more emphasis on pace of play. And I do think there is a bit of a downside in terms of fundamentals. And tackling is one of the most critical fundamentals of playing defense, because the ultimate objective is tackle the guy with the ball. When people used to get in a huddle and you used to practice and a player didn't do something, you had time between plays to correct him, show him exactly what he did wrong, tell him exactly how he should have fit the tackle or how he should have leveraged it or the technique that he should have used. Now I start running over there to tell a guy that, and they're running the next play, and they're about ready to run over me. So Miss Terry said, stay out of there. But I think you have to find a balance and do both. But I do think that it has effect. And I do think that spreading out defensive players, used to be they had two backs in the backfield, a tight end, two wideouts. So there was 9 guys in here in close proximity to the ball, so there wasn't not as much space created. These plays that we see now, there is a lot of space created, from horizontal and vertical, all right, which, is going to stress the defensive player athletically to be able to make the play in space.
Okay, I think we have a question in the middle. Go ahead.
You guys have only given up 8 sacks all season. Why have you been so good at keeping people off Blake Sims?
Well, I think, first of all, the offensive line has done a good job. I think, secondly, Blake is very athletic, so at times he avoids pressure. And third, I think that we move the pocket effectively, where it makes it a little more difficult to zero in on the quarterback. So I would say probably a combination of those 3 things is probably the reason.
Okay, go ahead, on the right.
Coach, you knew what you were getting with Lane Kiffin when you hired him, but now through 12 games, what's the biggest thing or the most important thing he's brought to the team?
Well, what I knew what I was getting was a very, very good coach who does a great job with the players, who is a great teacher, and he has done exactly what I thought he was and what I expected him to do, and he's a really good play caller, and he's done a great job for us this year. So I think I got exactly what I expected. I don't think anybody else expected what I expected, to the point where I even got criticized for doing it by a lot of people. But I got what I expected. You all didn't get what you expected. That's what you really want to write about.
Question in the middle on the left, go ahead.
Coach, Missouri's had a lot of recent success getting those division titles, but for whatever reason, they haven't been able to get over the hump of a conference championship. What, in your eyes, would an SEC championship do to validate Missouri within the conference?
I really can't speak for Missouri and their team and what they've done in championship games. I mean, I can't validate what they need to do for anything. I'm here to represent our program, our team, our players, and the significance of the game for our players. I want to win the game for our players. Our players have worked very hard all year long, and I would like to see nothing more than our players be happy about the fact that they have an opportunity that they've created for themselves to finish their season so that they sort of accomplish something of significance. So that's my motivation for the game. That's what I want to see for our players. And I really can't speak for anybody else's players.
Question in the back on the right.
Hi, just a quick question for you. You talked earlier about the downside of sort of the playoff, and obviously with the collapse of the University of UAB this season, who you may have remembered from your days at LSU. What's your thought about the whole UAB situation and what something like a playoff could do to smaller football programs?
Where are you from? Where are you from?
I'm from London, England.
London,
I've
yeah,
come
well,
to
good.
follow
I'm
you.
glad to have a little diversity in the group here. But I really hate that I think one of the things that college football does is create a lot of opportunities for a lot of young people, all right? And that's something that I've always really, cherished and respected relative to our profession and what we do as coaches in any sport. So I hate to see those opportunities not exist for players in any program where they chose to go to get an education and have an opportunity to, compete on, in whether it's a football program or any other program. But saying all that is, there's a business aspect to college athletics that, maybe really doesn't fit, all right, in the university experience. But whether it fits or not, it does exist. It is a reality. And everybody has to make a decision from a business standpoint as to whether it's feasible for them to have a program relative to the cost and the revenue created. So, there's two sides of the issue here. It's not for me to judge other than the fact that I love that we can create opportunities for young people to get an education and compete and learn a lot of lessons in life through the competition. And I hate to see it go away anyplace. But at the same time, I understand the business part of it as well.
We've got time for 2 more questions. We'll take the 2 that have been waiting in the back. And also, as a reminder, when we conclude, we'll have the hosts from SEC Nation, Joe Tessitore, Tim Tebow, Marcus Spears, and Haley Hartung on the podium and spend a few minutes with you. So last 2 questions, go ahead in the back.
So there's a lot of pressure to cover Amari Cooper. So how do you get him the ball so that he can play to his full potential?
Well, you know, Amari's been a very effective player for us all year long, and, you know, people do things to try to take him out of the game. I think one of the things that we try to do to counteract that is move him around a lot, which people really don't sort of understand and maybe respect how difficult that is for him. To be able to make the adaptations and adjustments to play different positions, even though it's all receiver. It does change what he does from week to week and how he does it based on the receiver location that he ends up in. But it's also been one of the things that has been helpful to us, being able to get him the ball so that the defense can't totally zero in on where he's going to be. And I think that's, you know, a real credit to, you know, our offense and the strategy that we create, and, you know, the way Lane Kiffin has, you know, come up with formations and motions to make it more difficult for the defensive team. But I also think it's really important that, you know, all of our other players have an expectation that, I'm talking about all of our other skill players now, have an expectation of how important it is for them to, you know, be physical, play fast, and get ready to take advantage of opportunities, because if and when they do and are able to minimize his impact, it should create some opportunities for other people who we have a lot of confidence in as well.
Hey, last question in the back, go ahead.
Coach, I just wanted to ask about the challenge of this week. You know, a week ago, we didn't know, you know, you didn't know you were playing Missouri. You didn't know you were even going to be in this game. What was Saturday night, Sunday like as you dive in to look at that kind of film?
Well, you know, I think that, you know, sometimes you can get a jump on things when you know what's going to happen. We didn't know if we were going to be in the game. We didn't know until Friday if we were in the game who would play in the game. But when you're in the playoffs in the NFL, you don't always know who you're going to play, and you don't know who you're going to play until you win the game and they win their game. So, you know, you have to do the best you can as a coach to create a normal week of preparation for your players. I think that's the most important thing. No matter how much time you have to spend or what the grind might be to get it done, I think that's the most important thing, to be able to prepare your team well. And that's really what you want to do as a coach when you play in games like this, is make sure you have a well-prepared team. Now, saying all that, also when you play in games like this, you got to expect the unexpected, all right? Because somebody's going to do something that you couldn't prepare for in terms of what they changed and how they changed it. So your players are going to have to be able to adapt in the game as well.
Hey, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.